failing teaches you a lot. And that, okay, I took this risk and it didn't really work out, but did I die? No, I didn't die. Maybe I lost maybe time, but in that time, maybe I gained a lot of other skills that I didn't have otherwise. So my perception of what the word risk means has honestly been shaped over time.
Hey, hey, Dumi, how are you?
Hey, Ravi, it's good to be with you again. I'm well, hope.
Yeah, it's been a while since we first met, but it took a while for us to get together. You've been very busy with Shonda Studio.
Mhm.
So today I have Dumi Mavena, and he is a MBA graduate from Georgetown, as well as a co-founder of Shonda Studio. Dumi, I got to see your excellent demo of Shonda
Yeah.
at the one of the DC meetups, and I was very impressed by you leveraging AI technology for podcasting, especially for the audio side of things. So and afterwards, I just had to kind of come up to you and talk to you, and we just kind of clicked off right away as soon as we started talking. So I knew I wanted to talk to you more often. So I try to get in contact with you and have you as one of my first guests for my podcast. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Ravi, I'm first and foremost, it was a pleasure meeting you on that evening, meeting you afterwards, but then also being here. I'm honored. I'm truly honored, and I know what it's like to start a podcast. So whenever someone reaches out to me, I'm always like, yeah, I'm happy to be one of your first guests because I resonate with the feeling of reaching out and getting your guest list in order. And so I'm honored to be, and thank you so much for having me.
No, pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. So you've accomplished quite a bit here, and it seems like you're from a Zimbabwean background, if I have that correct. And so, do you want to talk me through your journey to get here?
Oh, that's it. It's a very good question. I'm trying.
I love hearing about people's backgrounds. That's the interesting part.
Totally. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Maybe I'll start from the beginning. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm Zimbabwean. My name is Dumi. Yeah, I've lived in five other countries as well, which is I think why my brain was trying to figure out where to begin with. But I'm first and foremost from Zimbabwe, and I think Zimbabwe it's wonderful, and my family lives there. My parents are from there, but because I think it was a bit economically turbulent, some of the times I'd moved around a bit. So I'm from Zimbabwe, but I left to go to Canada for a couple of years from the ages of 8 to 10, moved back to Zimbabwe again for school. And for high school, I went to boarding school in South Africa at the time. So I went to boarding school in South Africa. Then I moved to go to college in Scotland for my undergrad. Then I moved back to Southern Africa again, bounced between Zimbabwe and South Africa. Then I met a beautiful young lady who is now my wife. She became my fiance, now my wife. And when we were in South Africa, we said, okay, because she was doing the Peace Corps in South Africa at the time. We met, fell in love, and then we moved to the United States. And we both applied to grad school, and Georgetown was a school that we chose it and it chose us. And that's how we ended up in DC. So that kind of gives you the broad overview of the geographical movement. But yeah, work stuff I didn't really touch on, but geographically, that's kind of we have been shaped. Let's call it that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a lot of moving around, and I assume it was with your family
Mm.
at that time, where you're just like moving from Canada to South Africa and everywhere. And it sounds like you recently got married then, which
Yes.
yes, congratulations. That's awesome, man.
Thank you very much.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's always it kind of caught you off by surprise asking you for your background because you didn't know where to start. But I think I just find it that our youths, how we grew up, like shapes a lot of like who we are, the
Mhm.
lessons that we learn,
Mhm.
and how we perceive the world is just true for anyone, right?
Mhm.
So I would be curious to talk a bit more about like some of this life lessons that you learned, like possibly what from like moving around so much, and how is that like contributing to your success today?
Cool. I think that's a good question. I think more than anything, what travel does or being in different parts of the world gives you is maybe a different perspective. Give you different perspectives. Also, the insight that maybe not one perspective is more important than another. It's just different. So it's been really, I guess, a bit of a blessing being able to see the world through different people's eyes, and that of course shapes you. I think in this chapter of my life, what I think moving around has given me is maybe um, perspective in the sense that just appreciation, if I can call it that. So I've worked and lived in many different parts of the world. Some places are maybe good at some things or provide opportunities in different things. I would say I'm very appreciative to be in the United States at this chapter of my life. Um, because yeah, I think in the United States, I think maybe from a work perspective, if you're appreciative of your environment and the surroundings around you, there's a lot it can give you, and it is a very generous place for a person that I guess wants to make the most of opportunities that are before them. So I would say coming here, I'm 32 now. Having spent time in other parts of the world that are a bit different, gave me a different level of appreciation for all that America has and has to offer. And not just, to take, but to also give back in any way that I can because I'm so appreciative. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't maybe be as driven had I not lived elsewhere because I knew what I was getting when I got here. I said, whoa, there's all this stuff um, that they want to give to people if the people want to take advantage of it. So, of course, grad school was one of those things. Being part of the DC tech community was another one of those things. Just the ability to pitch what we're working on, present what we're working on, and is the main reason I'm speaking to you here in many ways, right? And that was an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. So even though they gave me the opportunity, now I'm trying to, of course, give back in any small way that I can, through being on this podcast, speaking to you. So perspective, I guess, is the one word answer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic because I also come from an immigrant background. So in India, I kind of grew up understanding what third world country actually looks like, right? I
Mm-hmm.
lived in it.
Yep.
And coming here into the US, it's kind of like you, I didn't appreciate it growing up necessarily, but once I got my own job, lived on my own, kind of really started to appreciate the sacrifices that my parents made, right?
Totally.
And seeing them just giving up everything to go to an unknown country to start their life. It's like, man, could I have done that? It's like,
Ah,
dang, it's like I don't know if I could have.
right.
So
Yep.
it's like that you do feel that overwhelming sense of like gratitude for what you have,
Wow.
especially since you said you grew up in a very economically turbulent, region of the world,
Yes.
and seeing the stability that U.S. provides like
Mhm.
is huge. It allows you to take risks. It allows you to become what you want to be. It's within your power to do so without having to worry about uncertainty and what's going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of things to worry about, but like it's certainly not as much compared to what you would have had to.
That's very insightful, Ravi. I think maybe with my line of work right now being entrepreneurship, often there's inherent risk in and of itself through that path of work. But to your earlier point, having a different perspective on the word risk itself, you're like, okay, I get this is risky, but I've seen
Yep.
riskier things, in the riskier environments. So believe me, yes, there's a inherent risk to the things that we're doing, but you can take, I guess, more calculated risks in environments of more macroeconomic stability. So perspective, once more, perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's huge. It's huge, not just in terms of like we're living,
Mhm.
but in terms of business as well. Like you're an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So in business, you understand the importance of taking risks,
Mhm.
but not taking too big of a risk that you lose everything, right? There's still that aspect of it that even in the US, like no one's really gonna pick you up from if you just manage to screw it up, you know? So do you find like your entrepreneurship journey has somewhat been shaped, like your business decisions and stuff like that, about risk taking versus, when to maybe not take as much risk is shaped by your background,
Yeah,
backstory?
100%. 100%. I would say I've worked in startups for most of my career, to be honest. From undergrad, like I started a manufacturing business after undergrad when I was back in Zimbabwe. And that taught me a lot about, I guess, entrepreneurship and how it's not as sexy as it might seem on the outside. I know we might give it, glossy language, but it's actually can be quite challenging. But it was good to take that initial risk, or to at least know what risk taking in this line of work feels like,
Mhm.
through the entrepreneurship lens. So, and my first business actually, it didn't succeed. So I know what it means to start something, build something, grow something, and ultimately not be able to scale something because maybe you did a miscalculation in your risk assumption. And with that business, essentially, we had no supply. Our supply chain couldn't scale, and as a result, we couldn't sustain the growth of the business itself. So, yeah, to answer your question, yes, I've been able to take risk, get burnt, start again. But then after, I think once you have taken a risk and maybe not succeeded in the way that you hoped you would, I think, for lack of a better word, I think failing teaches you a lot. And that, okay, I took this risk and it didn't really work out, but did I die? No, I didn't
Mhm.
die. Maybe I lost maybe time, but in that time, maybe I gained a lot of other skills that I didn't have otherwise. So my perception of what the word risk means, has honestly been shaped over time through trying things. Then moving to South Africa to be part of other entrepreneurial teams where people maybe had a smarter way on how to approach risk, and learning
Mhm.
from people like that, working in really smart teams. Then I'm like, oh, okay, risk is a thing, but it can also be approached in a more intelligent way if you mitigate it through, checking your assumptions, validation, data, etc. And some of those things I've now taken into what we do now and how we have built Shonda. So essentially, yeah, totally. My background has been
Yeah.
totally been shaped
Yeah.
by my relationship with that word, for sure.
Yeah. What you said there was so on point, where it's like, I took risk and I failed, but did I die? Right. That's the critical component of it, because a lot of countries that does happen. Unfortunately, it's like where you taking a risk means it's not funny, but it's like that costs people lives. And being in a position where it's like you understand that, okay, if I take this risk, I still have, an healthy body. I can
Yeah.
still,
Yes.
I will learn from my failure and
Uh,
try again. Like,
yes.
just keep going back at
Exactly. And that's how I think
it.
today. Obviously, you want to be smarter about how you don't want to go through those things again, because it can be painful, but you have the ability to pick oneself up again. And, thankfully, your mother loves you, your father loves you,
Yeah.
you have a sibling, and you go like, you know what? I can always learn something from this and try again. So yeah, my relationship with the word, it removed some elements of fear from the heart, because, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm
It actually reminds me of a story that Kobe told, where Kobe, he was in Italy, I believe, with his mother,
hmm
and he was like very dominant there.
hmm
And when he moved to Philly and to Philly suburbs or wherever he lived to play basketball here in the US, at
hmm
the age of like 12 or 11 or something, he failed miserably. Like, he was dominant over there, but he
hmm
failed here.
hmm
And his mother said to him, it's like, it's okay, it's okay to fail. And once Kobe knew that
hmm
he had his mother's parents' permission to fail,
no,
like, that's when he became dominant. That's when he became the black mamba. He would just
mm
go out and practice.
hmm
So his first year when he came to play in the US, he actually didn't. I don't think he scored any points the entire season. Something like that. Something crazy like that.
mm
But the next season, he was just like completely dominant. And what he said was, one of the best things you can do for your children is let them know it's okay to fail.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, that's powerful. That's
yeah.
very powerful.
I mean, when you bring Kobe Bryant into the conversation. How could I not even like you even more as it?
No, I love hearing like inspiration tales
No,
like this. Like,
you just
that just gets you fired up.
totally agree. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the greatest licenses I've been given is, yeah, license to, I think the biggest gift my parents have given me is they're triers. They try things. And of course, being able to see people try and attempt things, sometimes succeed, sometimes maybe not so much, and then also then give you the same license to do the same is very encouraging. Or at least, yeah, it's emboldening because you're, oh, okay, well, I can try something. And you keep trying, and trying is about trying, learning, iterating, and then you keep learning off the back of that. So I would echo what Kobe's sentiments.
Yeah. No, that actually,
Yeah.
um, what you said about trying versus like aiming for success or perfection, really, that's kind of what it is. Like,
Yeah.
even as I'm starting this podcast, it's
Mm-hmm.
just trying. I don't have the
Right.
best background anymore. I don't have like great lighting, but it's like, just keep going, just
Keep going.
keep, just doing it. And after a while, you get the success,
Yes.
which actually brings you back to like when I saw your demo.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you said was how most people don't make it past their fourth podcast episode with Shonda Studio,
Yep.
and that resonated with me, and which is why I came up to you and talked to you and started the conversation with you.
Yep.
And that's how we kicked it off.
Mhm.
Was I said, I started my YouTube channel
Mhm.
because I read somewhere that most people don't make it past their 20th video,
Mhm.
and I was like, I'm just gonna make 20 videos. I don't care how crappy they are.
Mhm.
And it was just like you iteratively
Mhm.
just kind of go through and improve a little bit at a time. Just
Mhm.
keep trying.
Mhm.
Even now, I have no idea where my YouTube channel's going, but like just trying and keeping going with what I am doing, like, it'll lead somewhere. I don't know where,
Yes.
but it's just the journey is in trying.
Yes. The journey is the reward. The journey is
Yeah.
the reward.
Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
the journey is the reward. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's a weird one because often a lot of people I think maybe start podcasts because they have something to say, which is a beautiful thing. Of course, part of the reason is that they don't keep sustaining it is because it takes them a lot of time, right? We know, of course, that as you know, with this podcast, there's a recording and then the editing, then making it sure it's pretty enough to then, of course, publish. And there's a lot of time that's spent in between the things in the middle. Of course, with us, we're trying to, of course, streamline those things for a person that is in their earlier stages and for anyone who wants to just streamline that process. So, and keep getting better at that core thesis, streamlining
Mhm.
the production process. However, I think there's also another thing to be said about expectations. So you can still streamline someone's process, but what is the perceived reward from doing this particular thing? And sometimes maybe we don't manage expectations right in the beginning. So what success looks like for you might be different from what success looks like for me. So for example, one person might be like, hey, I just want to do, to your point, 20. That's my goal. And if I've hit my goal, I'm successful. And another person might have said, oh, I didn't even have a goal. I just started. They might get to 100. And they might think, yeah, I didn't really succeed, to be honest with you. Because in the beginning, there
Yep.
was no expectation set around what does success even mean for me,
Mhm.
this endeavor I'm about to embark on. And
Yep.
sometimes I think the tough part about it is it's hard to know what that even is consciously upfront. It's like a thing you're
Mhm.
discovering in the journey of making it, right? So I think it's kind of a weird thing where you want to help somebody set expectations and say, let's have a goal. But at the same time, it's like, I'm still figuring out what the goal or the thing I'm trying to achieve is subconsciously by doing the thing. So I think
Yep.
it's managing those two things is the beauty and the challenge at the same time. You know.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you were talking there, I was thinking about like me wanting to start my own like company,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like I have a ton of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's like I don't know which way to go. I keep on being pulled one direction or
Mm-hmm.
the other.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I just started an LLC, That's it. You start the LLC, then you take the next step once you have something established. So I made my goal just to start the LLC.
That's good.
That's like the first. That was like the first success, right? And then you go and aim for the next tiny success, the next tiny success, and then after a while, I realized, oh, successful businesses required networking. So I started doing a ton of networking. So that was my next leg of success. I didn't really have a product, right? But it's just like networking, getting out into the entrepreneurship ocean that it is. Like that in itself is a success. Just putting yourself out there instead of just sitting at home, like just thinking about doing something. Going out, meeting people, even if you don't have anything yet. So it is very much like you're kind of making your own journey, but you kind of have to define how you're consistent about it. So it's like just go to networking events or create 4 podcasting episodes, right? Just have one thing be consistent, and you'll figure things out along the way. So now I just want to shift back to Shonda Studio here. And so do you want to take us through like a little bit of the background on how you got to...
Yeah, for sure. I think like many of us in the pandemic, we're sitting in our houses. Or actually, no, I'll take it even further back. So as I mentioned before, I grew up in Zimbabwe, which is, wonderful. I was listening to a Zimbabwean podcast this morning at the gym. One of my favorite ones. It's got this fantastic voice called Trevor. But in any case, I've always loved voice audio. This kind of content has always been my favorite. Listen to, watch. Just love 2 people talking, and I don't know what it is about it, but it's my favorite. It's not no cinema, no bells and whistles, but 2 people talking, 3 people talking.
It's genuine.
It's just very true. It's very honest and very genuine. So it's my favorite form of media, and I always watched it and listened to it. And then years later, I think I had this realization that when I was growing up, there was only one television channel, a specific local television channel. There was ZBC, which is like the local broadcaster. So Zimbabwe had the dictatorship government at the time, and what they'll often do is they'll only have one television channel. So if you wanted to get more television channels, you'd have to get what they call DSTV, which is a foreign broadcasting digital satellite television. And what will then happen is you would watch American media, so Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, or as cartoons, or MTV and VH1, and all of these foreign. And I love those channels, right? But then if it was foreign, if it was local, let's say African, it'll be like South African broadcasting. So just different foreign content. So I grew up in many ways just watching that content. But as a result of a lack of access to local stories, I think when I moved, as I told you, I've moved around a bit to South Africa, I think I got pretty homesick. And I think when I'm away, local content is the way in which I feel attached to home. And then I was like, damn, okay, there's a lot of local content for me to consume, because honestly, there wasn't the broadcasting networks through which people could have access to that stuff. But when I moved back home, I was like, I want to do like a YouTube channel. I want to do a YouTube channel where I can have my own, me and my friend, I reached out to my friend Tapio. I said, hey, let's do a YouTube channel. We just interview local people doing cool things that are maybe a bit no one really sees in our community, but I think it would be cool to record these local channels and stories. And Tapio got his camera. He borrowed one from his friend. And the day before our first interview, like that day of, someone stole the camera. So someone stole the camera, so we couldn't do the YouTube recording. And for me, YouTube was this phenomenal treasure trove of just content, because everyone uploads something, and like to your point, like just like yourself, you can put something on the internet, and then someone across the world can listen to it. So YouTube always, like, it still is for me this amazing place. But then of course I told you about how our camera got stolen, and then that project never took off, and it kind of just we couldn't even get the project off the ground. We didn't have a camera at the time. But then years later, of course, I was exposed to like the medium of podcasting, and similarly, decentralized form of content production and consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay. Before, when we grew up, there was traditional media where the state would control, maybe corporations would just control. But now we're living in an era where, because of technology, like you and I are recording in different parts of the world right now, but we are producing content which will then publish and be consumed in every part of the world, which seems like, yeah, that means cool, whatever. But if you grew up with lack of access to local content product, it's just, for me,
Yeah.
just a marvel. It's still a marvel to me to this day. So I did my own podcast called Zimbabwean Voices. I was during the pandemic. We were all doing Zoom, and it was scrappy, but it was fulfilling. We interviewed, a bunch of local people who inspire me, who come from different backgrounds in sport, media, philanthropy, small business, big business, etc. And we just told their stories. And it was just honestly a meaningful project that I wanted to do during the pandemic. But when I got so much really good feedback from other people, I was like, wow, this is a kind of a powerful medium. So, and then I think we did another thing where we did a fundraiser with the episode 3 with one of the people who had a nonprofit, and we sent kids to school with our listeners and community. And I was like, wow, this is kind of a really powerful medium. So, a long way of saying, I fell in love with podcasting, had my own, saw how powerful and impactful it was and how the benefits of it. But part of the challenge was that when I was at business school, I wanted to keep it going, but it was just time. I had time constraints and the lack of income because, I've sacrificed school to be at business school.
Right.
Then you realize, okay, if you're at school, you have limited time, money, and then I also have limited skills in content production. I'm like, damn, for a person with those constraints, it's really difficult to sustain this medium. So we had tried a bunch of tools at the time. I think they weren't really meeting our needs. So we're like, okay, how can we then streamline production? And I think what we saw was many people are stitching together, like myself, stitching together different solutions. Like, okay, I might stitch together the editing. I might stitch together intro and outro. I might stitch together Canva and the automated titles and descriptions. So how do we streamline the production? I told you my first company was a manufacturing business. How do you streamline production into a sequential workflow that can essentially, make it easier for a person with those constraints, limited time, money, and skill, but still has a story that I want to tell and share with the world. And we put that essentially into a feature set through software. And of course, we have a wonderful team. It's not just me. I have a co-founder and a team of about 3 other people who have helped us get this far. And that's what Shonda does. It just helps you tell your story affordably, simply, and as quickly as possible. So you can go to the thing you want to do, which is telling more stories. So yeah.
That's honestly, it sounds like I'm your target audience because I try to do like a lot of things in my personal life, but also trying to do a lot of things with networking and business and stuff like that. And I also like started doing the podcasting stuff, and I found like the editing part of it is just kind of like I don't necessarily enjoy that part, and it's like, do I want to hire someone else to do it? And it's like, I don't know. I just want to slap like some kind of like a beginning part of it, and just let the rest of it just be natural, free form, and just kind of end the video. So what your platform is kind of offering, Shonda Studio, is exactly that. Is like you just streamline creating the beginning process, in the intro, as well as editing and whatnot. But I can just take my audio file, upload it, and it's kind of done.
Yes, exactly. And I think more than that, it's guiding you through what's next. I think sometimes we often get stuck because we don't know what the next task is. So we love this part. Like, it's fantastic when Ravi speaks to Dumi and Dumi enjoys speaking to Ravi, and we have a great conversation. Afterwards, you're like, oh, okay, what do I have to do next now? And when you're in the beginning stages of establishing a workflow, can be a bit distracting. So, for example, when we were speaking, I'm in the office now, and I saw like this conveyor belt rising, and those sounds end up in your audio. You don't think about
these.
I'm gonna ring your doorbell right now whilst you're talking. You have to go, answer the doorbell, come back, and that content is still those background noises and interruptions are in the content. So
have to worry about my laptop fan noise being in this recording.
You
So
too. So it's essentially, I think, what us is that we're thinking of all the interruptions that might occur during your recording, and we put those into a guided journey. So we're like, hey, you probably might meet these interruptions, but don't worry. There are these set of features that will help you, clean up your audio, bolt on the intro,
mm,
the outro,
mm.
automate the descriptions and the titles for your show, and then eventually we'll get to a point where you can then just publish in one click. So that's where we're at, and yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. As a software engineer, I would want to get more into the technical details of that, but like, I'll leave that for another time,
Right.
maybe. But like, that's really interesting. I've never really worked with audio stuff, so
Mhm.
to do that with software,
Mhm.
it seems, did you use like a third party software? Did you all build like all this in house?
Yeah, we the majority of it we built in house. I think what's also quite exciting is that we live in a time now where I think a lot of AI models have it's a fantastic time to simplify
Right.
certain tasks with the time that we're living in. So I think a lot
Yep.
of AI underpinning some of the things that we've built up. Of course, how we went about doing it is a bit different to how some other platforms are doing it. But essentially, we're thinking about the problem already before. But then when the
Mhm.
timing kind of came into place, where like, hey, LLMs are now in vogue, then we're like, okay, well, we just had a very clear use case, something we're thinking about already at length and in detail.
Mhm.
They just kind of align quite well. So obviously, we're still quite young into our journey, and we have a lot of things that we would like to add in the future. We know that things like video are, of course, are equally as important. But I think as a start, it's like, okay, a lot of people still prefer to use audio and do audio.
Right.
So how can we just maybe um, enter the marketplace and add value there before, of course, in the future, adding, more robust feature sets as well. So,
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm actually thinking about going to just audio because it's you have to no longer worry about stuff like lighting, and how you're looking, how to like dress up correctly and stuff like that. Honestly, it's just like we said, it's like making the problem set smaller, right? Where you
yes,
just focus just on the audio itself
yes,
instead of worrying about, okay, I need to edit this part out because my face looks dumb, right? Or something is like, okay, I don't like the background. I'm not going to record today until I have
right.
the
You get a
best background.
background.
The light, there's too much sunlight in the background, something like that. It's not going to. So it's interesting because like I started off doing video on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and then I find like myself being discouraged from recording because of all these external factors that are like, I don't have the perfect studio to record in. If I'm in my house, I don't. Versus if I just went to audio,
Mm-hmm.
like all I need is a mic, good quality mic,
Yeah,
and that's I could have that anywhere really. And with your software would just remove any external noises, any
yeah.
kind of anomalies and stuff like that. Anyways, so it's like audio would honestly be a much easier way to get started. And if I had to start again, I would go for it from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just about getting started once more. I think sometimes we get paralyzed by perfection. Like perfectionism gets in the way of like, oh wow, I want to make this the biggest production. And often it's about, okay, to your earlier point, how do we shrink the problem set to the
Right.
core fundamental? It's like you want to tell a story. And with anything, whether it's with anything, you start with this minimal feature set, then of course you build up and you depending on, of course, what kind of production you're trying to make, the vast majority of us are having dialogue like this. We aren't making
Mhm.
NPR level productions. And that's not to say that NPR production is better than what I have to say for my audience. So, it's not just, it's very subjective, right? But for the
Yeah.
vast majority of us, it's two of us talking. Then the beginning of the episode, I'll tell you what the episode was about, and then I'll close out at the end. And I think the guidance is trying to close out with the minimal features, minimal things you need first just to start. Then with time,
Right.
you can say, I might want to change to video now, and I might want to get a set, or but at least you have an audience that is, that I've built an audience that likes this whole thing I started out with. Now I'm adding these little tweaks and adjustments over time, as opposed to trying to do everything at once up front.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that's where, when I said at the beginning, where I try to do a lot of things and then have to compress back down to like the core feature, like ideas, because at the beginning I'm like, I don't know where it's going, but it's like I started with video format. Then I moved to podcasting. I wanted to do like short videos as well. But then I'm realizing like I'm just not prepared in this moment to, create a necessarily like do video editing, spend so much time trying to remove stuff because it didn't come out correctly on the video. It's like audio would be so much perfect. Like my mindset would be like, I just hop on, sit down, just record something. And it's like making that problem set so small and just so defined, like it helps a lot to get started.
For sure. I'll just add one thing, or it's maybe, I think video is still nothing wrong with video. People will be listening, be like, what are you talking about? YouTube algorithm is amazing. What are you talking about? And YouTube video is growing. I'm not going to bash video, but I think with us, it's like, maybe it's a different portion of video. So for example, we just launched a podcast for Shonda, and it's like, we do audio for the long form, but for the clips to promote it, we do video. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, you can still do video, but it's maybe, I just use 3 or 4. I'll do a remote recording on maybe Zoom or what have you. But to promote the main thing, I might do like, because it's hard to say to everyone, here's 40 minutes of content, or here's an hour of content. People are like, what do I even know how do I know what I'm going to get by committing? Right. So it's like, okay, here is 1 minute or 30 seconds of this, and you can see who the two people are. So I'm not against video, but I think you can just start with audio, and you might be like, okay, now I'm going to add video, but it's just maybe clips of the video. And then maybe, okay, now I'm doing clips, then full, you know what I'm saying? Then I've got a full,
Well, it's like the difference between like a movie poster, a trailer for a movie, and actually watching the movie itself, right? Where it's like your short, 30-second video might be like the movie poster, and then the trailer of it could be like a slightly longer form. Like specific segments of the interview, like 10-minute segments or something like that. Which, both of those two things are short enough that they would work in a video form, right? And then the longer, the actual meat of the content is in the podcast itself, right? The audio is the full length, because we could talk all day, I'm sure, but it's like you can't get everything in a short form. You just have to give out.
But you can give out a flavor, like a sample of what the whole product. But
exactly. And actually, like most people probably get their like new contents from YouTube Shorts or Instagram or TikTok, like all these short form content, like they are important for building your audience, I'll say,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it also forces you to kind of stay on message, like show like what you're about. Like, can you show me what you're about in a 10-second video clip?
Yes, totally. And that's, and we're always experimenting with those and figuring out what are the key drivers. But I think for now, at least give people, at least what our view is, for a person who's it's a lot to kind of learn. So it's like, let's first focus on the core things you need to make the main thing, which is just get from recording to published. That's the core thing. Then you can focus on the marketing and so on. But so incrementally. But that's awesome.
That's awesome. So what you've been very busy. You've been traveling. I know you were in Chicago recently. Oh, great city. I want to go back there. It was last month or
it was
weeks
last month. I think it's been a good month, a busy month, I would say. Of course, working on building the business. We're also an accelerator right now, so we're in the Textiles pre-accelerator. So that's a 10-week program, and the goal of the program is to essentially help maybe get a different perspective on your business. And if you get a feel for how textiles works, and if you are a fan, you then go into a funded accelerator where they help capitalize the business to then take it to the next level, right? So we're in the pre-accelerator and we're getting a feel for Techstars, and yeah, it's been really fun. So there's that, and that kind of goes between here and Baltimore. And then Chicago, my wife was running the Chicago Marathon, so that's why.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah.
My girlfriend loves watching the marathons. So
Yeah, maybe next year. Maybe next year she'll. But last year we went to watch, and she was like, I think next year I want to run it, and then she did. So
are you running?
I have an injury, but maybe next. Yeah, no, genuinely, I have an injury.
No.
I was her
Gotcha.
chef. I was running around supporting her and helping her out. So
that's great. That's great. Actually, I was afraid of running long distances for a long time, but my girlfriend got me into running, and I did my first half marathon.
Wow.
I don't think it was last. It was last year, actually.
Which one? The Cherry Blossom? The Cherry Blossom?
What's that?
Was it the Cherry?
No, it was in Philly. The Philly half marathon I did, and I walked and ran most of it, but it's like completed it. It's like I was very proud of myself.
You finished.
But it's like trying these things. I feel like there's like lots of lessons that you learn from different activities that keep coming back, where it's like sometimes the success is just, finishing. You don't have to run the entire thing. I walked most of it, and it's like, hey, I still accomplished this half marathon.
I think it goes back to the original theme of what we're trying to speak about today. It's, there's some people, like yesterday night, I was watching the video of Kipchoge. I think, if I'm not butchering his name, he was a Kenyan gentleman who passed away recently, but he ran it first time running a full marathon in sub 2 hours. So it's like an hour 59. It's like never been done before. And he's incredibly objectively successful. Like, he's the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
And then one person might be like, oh, well, someone will ask you, oh, are you a runner? But you do it like a marathon in 5 hours. You might be like, well, not. And it's like, of course, that person's successful. Anyone who is successful, I think often, to the earlier point, it's your own race. And, success is defined on your own terms. Whether you're running it in sub 2 hours or whether, you're running it in 5 hours and so on, it's at your own pace and you're finishing it and you're successful if that's what, you intended to do. So.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's so important, where it's kind of like we place like unfair expectations, or like expectations that come from other places, right? Like outside of ourselves. And that, I feel like that kind of demotivates people, and it keeps like stops them from achieving a lot of things in life, honestly. It's like these expectations that society puts on us, or we learned it from somewhere else, or watching someone else do it, who, it's kind of unfair to do that, really. It's very unfair.
Yeah, it's unfair to do it to yourself, especially. It's unfair.
Right. You define your journey, you define what success is to you, and honestly, like, that's where the happiness is going to come from.
Totally.
Yeah. How's a marathon of Shonda Studio and being an entrepreneur, like running from accelerators, different cities and stuff like that? Do you find it to be enjoyable? So are you setting your own success metrics?
You know what's funny? Like, as I was giving that feedback about success, I was asking myself the same questions. Like, well, what is success for? No,
you gotta be reminded from. Yeah, you gotta be reminded. You gotta like take a step back once in a while and say, like, hey, what is the success metrics?
Totally. This is why I like this medium. It helps you be a bit more interested. But I'm usually the one asking the questions, but it's always nice to be asked the questions as well. That's a good question. I think for us, right, we are aiming to build something that, has an impact on as many people as possible, and I think there's obviously a specific number towards that. Like, is that 100? Is that 1,000? Is that and I'm still grappling with this number. Of course, right now let's say it's in the millions, right? You want to build something that millions of people can use, but the issue is what? So if you got to 500,000, are you unsuccessful?
Yeah.
That's a big, that's a big business. Are you unsuccessful? So I think, maybe yes, there are certain quantitative metrics you're trying to run towards, but honestly, I like to look at it sequentially. It's right now, we want to build a business that enables us to, of course, help people, but, um, it's financially profitable. It's financially, I guess, rewarding. But I think beyond that, we have built a great team culture, that people like to come to work and help the people that we're striving to help. There's also a culture of learning and fulfillment. I think that's why really that's why I like this line of work so much. And that's not to say that you can't learn elsewhere. But I just feel like, I don't know, that entrepreneurial journey is one where you're learning so fast and you're always challenged. And
Yeah,
there's real learning and implementation. And if you can execute against that learning quickly, and you can figure out whether
yeah,
that learning has been true or not, and am I right or am I wrong? And if not, iterate quickly. I think that's really, I don't know, there's a lot of growth in that. I think I'm a person that likes to grow and learn. And I think this line
yeah.
of work gives me a lot of that, um, whilst also, of course, helping people, which is the most important thing. So I feel like I've said a lot of rambling, but it's a
No, no, no.
thing.
I, Trust me, it makes a lot of sense to me because it's like there is a lot to get out of it, right? Like it's not
Yes.
one thing
Mhm.
that it's not just money. Let's just put
No,
it that
it's
way.
not.
It's
It's not.
not just money. It's just not just empire building.
Uh,
There is if you'll get out of it what you want. Let's put
mhm.
it that way. Like, and there are 100. There are millions of ways that you could approach entrepreneurship and what you want to do
Sure,
if you want to help people and
for sure.
whatnot. Uh, but at the end of the day, I think like what I've noticed you're all about is like storytelling. You
Yeah.
love storytelling and
Yes.
whatnot.
Yeah. We believe in the power of stories. I think stories are incredibly powerful, tool and a vehicle, and through which you can shape life and shape society.
Yeah,
Um, you know, give dignity towards the people, uplift a person, inspire people. And I think it shouldn't be the case that stories can't be told because the technical barrier is too high.
hmm,
So I know what it's like to maybe grow up with not having a maybe diverse range of local stories, but I think for us, it's how can we make an organization that is able to empower people with the tools, wherever they might be, local, international, etc., to tell um, the stories they want to tell in a way that's simple, easy, and intuitive. So that's kind of our mission, what we're about. And I guess in doing that mission, a lot of things that you're trying to solve for intrinsically, which is like fulfillment, community impact. Uh,
yeah,
uh, then, of course, as a result, if you do those things well, yes, it is a business. So you want to, of course, have financial rewards in exchange for the value that you've built and created with the team that you've done that with. And it's all of those things into one thing, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, it's
Right.
every if I kind of think about it, it's like everything in life is about storytelling one way or another. Like if
Mhm.
you go in for a job interview, it's like, okay, tell me about yourself. Like you're
Mhm.
kind of telling a story about
Mhm.
yourself, selling yourself.
Mhm.
Even sales itself is storytelling.
Mhm.
And it's all about how you tell your story, how you tell the story of your product, how you tell the story of like, your team,
Mhm.
and what you're doing, your
Mhm.
goals and whatnot. You sell it to another person, you get them to buy into it, or you make them feel a certain way, right? Like maybe your story is
Yes,
moving enough that you
yes,
have an impact. Actually, it's all impact. You're trying to make an impact on another
that's
person
cool.
buying it, right?
Yeah, I think that's why we're here on this earth. I think we're
Yeah.
we're on this earth to help each other, and serve each other where we can. And your service might look different from my level of service, but whatever it is that you're making could serve me, and vice versa.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really why I think why we're actually on earth is to do things, create things, serve people, and serve each other. And right
I
now, that's just in the beginning, maybe it was my podcast. Um, right now it's Shonda and what we're doing now. But at the same time, with you're of course being of service to us by helping tell our
yeah,
story and what we're
yeah,
doing. And through your platform, of course, we get benefit of that as well. So we're serving,
yeah.
and I think that's what I believe why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about this a lot recently, where it's like, I think we human beings are social creatures. We're
Yes.
meant to help each other. Like,
Yeah.
if you remove the layer abstraction that is money,
Mm-hmm.
we're meant to help each other, like
Mm-hmm.
using our strengths, whatever we're good at,
Mm-hmm.
like help in exchange for something else. Usually it's money now because that's the best way to do it. But back in the day, it was like, okay, I'll help you out with this because I'm strong, and you'll help me
Or
out
the
with something
trade.
else.
Yeah, we bought.
Yeah, we'll trade, barter. Yeah, exactly. So we're meant to be doing this, I
Mm-hmm.
think, as a society. Uh, and technology, I think, is just helping us lower that barrier
Mm-hmm.
even more. So
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to take up all your time. I know you're a bit busy, man. I'll leave you with one thing here, though. I think we were talking about earlier about what is success, and is it success 500,000 people? I'll tell you, one person, me, I'll be using Shonda Studio. So you got one success story there. So just want to leave you with that.
Thank you so much, Rafi. That means a lot. And I think thank you so much for being so generous to invite us on your platform. We wish it all the best. I wish it all the best, that you continue to grow in this medium and continue to, touch many lives with the stories that you
Yeah.
tell. I met with Claudius, who's a mutual friend of ours, and he also
Yep.
said to have
Yep.
you as well. So
Oh, oh, thank you so much, Dumi. I really appreciate you coming on and helping out with being one of the first few guests here.
th- thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah. You press stop.